Okay, we're back factoring trinomial expressions. And now we got to talk about two situations that may happen. Yes, most of the time when we factor a trinomial expression, we get a binomial times a binomial. Okay? Sometimes when we factor that trinomial expression, our two binomials will end up being the same. And that means that trinomial is given a special name. So our first special case is when you factor a perfect square trinomial. Now you've heard the word perfect square before. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Remember those perfect square numbers we've talked about? A perfect square means something times itself. A number times itself. It also could be a variable times itself. So when you talk about perfect square in arithmetic and algebra, it means the same thing. It's something, a term, times itself, that same term. So a perfect square trinomial is when you factor it and you get the two parentheses that are identical. So if you look at my example in the PowerPoint, we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. That is a trinomial. We will not know if it's a perfect square until we factor it. So let's go and think backwards FOIL. Who's first? X squared. What's the only thing in algebra that can multiply to x squared? That's right, x and x. So that goes first. Who's your last term? 9. What are your options that multiply to 9? 1 and 9, 3 and 3. How do we decide? We read. I want to multiply to 9 and I want to add, that's what the plus means, I want to add to that 6 in the middle. 1 and 9 will never add to 6, so 1 and 9 are out. 3 and 3 will add to 6, so we know we're going to use 3 and 3. Adding means the signs in the binomials must be the same. And if I want to add to that middle term positive 6x, both of my 3's have to be positive. So we know when we factor x squared plus 6x plus 9, we get x plus 3 times x plus 3. But that's the same term, the same expression. Well, there's a better way to write x plus 3 times x plus 3. We talked about this a long time ago. I don't need to write 3 times 3. I could write that as 3 squared. So instead of writing x plus 3 times x plus 3, we could write that as x plus 3 squared. Therefore, that meant that trinomial was a perfect square trinomial. So a perfect square trinomial is when you factor the trinomial, you get two parentheses that are identical, two binomials that are the same, and that means you would rewrite it as that parentheses squared. A second case that could happen when you factor trinomials is real obvious, guys. It doesn't factor. Now that's the problem in factoring. You guys think because I taught you these rules, they're always going to work, and they're not. Think about arithmetic. If I said factor the number 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 or 11 or 13 or 17 or 19, you really can't factor any of those numbers because they are prime. And what prime means is they're in lowest terms. They're as low as you can go. If you remember from 3rd grade math making the factor trees, if you had 3 on the factor tree, there was no tree to make. 3 is as low as it goes. 5 is as low as it goes. So anything that's prime in arithmetic means it's in lowest terms. You cannot break it down. You cannot write it as factored form. Even if you write 5 as factored form and you write 5 times 1, it's still 5. So you can't break it down any lower. Well, that's also true in algebra. Not every time do I give you a polynomial expression is it going to guarantee it's going to factor. And if it doesn't factor, if you can't use your rules, then you'll call that expression prime. So if you look here, I gave you a trinomial x squared plus 3x plus 6. Okay, great. It's in descending order. I know the first term is starting out with a leading coefficient of 1, so that's going to be easy. The only thing that applies to x squared is x times x. Great. I'll go to the last term, which is 6. 6 is not a hard number to work with. That's either 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. How do you choose? You read. I want to multiply to 6. I want to add to what's in the middle, which is 3x. So again, what can multiply to 6? 1 and 6. Can 1 and 6 add to the middle 3? Nope. 1 and 6 adds to 7. What else multiplies to 6? 2 and 3. Okay, great. Will 2 and 3 add to what's in the middle, which is a 3x? No. What that means then is this trinomial cannot be broken down. It cannot factor. And what we say is when we cannot factor an algebra expression, we call it prime. That means it's already in lowest terms. So don't assume when you're asked to factor that you're guaranteed the polynomial will break down into multiplication. Some of them just can't. You can't rewrite it as multiplication, and you'll call it prime. All right, let's hit the whiteboard to look at these.